Now, I know there's already a new variant of this out on the market right now, the Softears Volume S, but as of this filming, we don't actually have our demo units right now. So in lieu of that, what better time to talk about the predecessor than right now, the Softears Volume, and why it is Crinacle approved and sold at Hangout.audio. So let's jump into that. The Softears Volume is an IEM coming in at $285 US and sports a 2BA1DD hybrid configuration. And I do understand some of your sentiments right now. 2BAs and 1DDs for over $200 US, that is absolute insanity. But you also have to understand that this is Softears we're talking about here. They are, for most intents and purposes, a high-end brand. At $285, the Volume is still the cheapest IEM in their lineup. So you can see why I say that Softears is not exactly your typical chi-fi company. First off, let's just talk about the non-audio stuff. When you buy a Softears Volume, what you get is a leather carrying case and 3 sets of tips, one silicone, one foam, as well as one of those sticky type ones. Now, the first con is that the Volume only comes in a 3.5mm SKU. What that means is that if you're running a 4.4 balanced DAC, well, you can't just simply buy a 4.4 version of the Volume. So packaging and accessories, sparse but practical. You're gonna get everything that you more or less need with the IEM, and nothing else much goes to waste. The Volume itself is built with 3D printed resin, and all of you at this point would know my thoughts on plastic shells, especially in the higher price brackets. But I myself would actually defend 3D printed shells for 2 very big reasons. First of all would be allowing the design to put in very intricate tubings into the shell design. Second of all is that it allows for the entire shell to be filled with resin. What that means is that it's actually a lot more durable, especially when you accidentally drop it on the floor. With typical handmade shells, because the shells are literally just a thin wall, you can actually crack the walls of the shell. But with a fully filled 3D printed resin shell, the force of the impact can be distributed throughout the entire shell, and so the only way that you can really break such an IEM is by completely shattering it. That's it. Please don't try and test the limits of your 3D printed IEMs. I'm not liable for any damages, so please don't. Putting that aside, let's now talk about the most important part of any IEM, the sound quality. And yes, the Volume is a great IEM. I approve of it. I think it's nice. So the Volume may be the cheapest in Softears lineup, but what would surprise a lot of people is that the Volume is also one of my favorite IEMs from Softears. First of all, the sound signature, it is undoubtedly a V-shaped set. You get boosted, emphasize bass as well as in the treble. But what Softears have done is that they have done it in a very tasteful way. If you look at the measurements, even on the 5128, they actually match up fairly well to a tilted diffuse field. It's up to you whether you want to consider such a tuning meta, but definitely it's less of a tilt, so it is bright leaning, but at the same time they also add quite a lot of bass to balance it all out. The bass of the Volume comes off as impactful, punchy, and definitely balances off the slightly shouty forward upper mids. So yes, it is colored, obviously, but it's done in a way that doesn't offend my sensibilities, for example. Resolving ability is great-ish. I would admit that in terms of the $300 IEM space, I have heard better. And this allows me to segue into the treble response, which is arguably the Volume's weak point. The treble exists. The upper treble in particular is definitely far less than what I would expect out of a tuning like this. So while it is a V-shaped signature, again boosting the bass as well as the treble, it is a V-shape that subdues the air frequencies on top of all of that. So that brings me to the first sound quality con of the Volume. Do not get the Volume if you're a treble head, if you're someone who requires that air frequencies to bring life into your music. The Volume has energy, but energy more in the upper mids and lower treble side of things. But still, I have to emphasize that the Volume is a great overall IEM. As the guy who has tested hundreds, thousands of IEMs, particularly those under $500, the Volume still stands on top of a large pile of mediocrity. So a quick aside, I have tested the Volume S very briefly, not my unit, and I would have to say that even with the new kid coming in, I still think that the old Volume still has a place at our store. But that's it. Things may change when we actually get our demo unit into the store and we test it further. So hey, look out for further updates, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully we may have a volume S video as well. But before that, let's just talk about the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. Why you should consider buying a volume and why you shouldn't. First of all would be, again, the lack of a 4.4mm option. So yes, all of you currently running balanced on your decks, you either have to make do with the 3.5mm connection, or you have to buy a separate additional cable for your volume. Second would be on its sound signature. It is again a V-shaped set. If you're someone who can't take either emphasized bass or even emphasized treble / upper mids, then don't consider the volume. And third, on its weak point, the treble extension, which can be outperformed by many other IEMs even at a cheaper price point. But why you should consider buying a volume? Well, for starters, it is actually a very well-built IEM. Yes, plastic because of 3D printed, but it's a very tasteful 3D print. It is fully filled and it also comes with a metal faceplate. The sound tuning is also done very beautifully. Yes, it's a V-shaped response with increased bass as well as treble, but it's done in a way that still makes the mids sound very natural. And that is the Softears volume, but as per usual, you don't have to take my word for it. You can always come down and try it out for yourself at the Hangout. We're located at 200 South Bridge Road in Chinatown. Come on down, grab a cup of coffee or even an ice cream, and then ask for the Softears volume. Test it out however way you want and then form your own opinions. And for those of you who are not privileged enough to be in Singapore, well, you can always consider purchasing from us at Hangout.audio, our online retail store. We ship globally and for free for orders over $30 and restricted territories apply. This is Crinacle for Hangout.audio, and remember kids, if it's not on the list, it doesn't exist. See you next week.